Hello and welcome back to the Sam Beast YouTube channel. My name is David Foxen, and as always, before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as it really does help the channel out, and we have been growing quite a lot recently, so your support is much appreciated. Today we are talking about open source license, what exactly open source is and what it means from an IT asset management software licensing perspective. So first of all, open source software is basically software that has been created by an individual or perhaps even a community of software developers that they have made freely available to the public. This means that you can change everything about the software, you can change the source code, and you can include it in other software programs that you're potentially building or applications. It's basically open for the world to go out there, have a look at all the coding, manipulate it, change it so that it works for you or works for another purpose, such as another application. Open source is also allowed to be distributed as part of a commercial licensed offering as well. So all of your beloved programs, your likes of your Adobes, your likes of your Microsofts, Autodesk, everything, all of that kind of stuff has open source software within it because it's helped them develop the final product on the software that you need and you buy for your organization. Obviously through a purchase license, through whatever licensing metrics and cost that particular vendor wants to sell their software for. There are lots of different open source licensing terminologies and frameworks you need to be aware of if you're looking at open source licensing. You've got the MIT license. You've then also got the GNU or the GPL, which is the general public license. Again, open source means you can freely use it within your organization and doesn't require any purchasing or licensing. And there's also some lesser known ones to be aware of as well, like the Mozilla public license or the MPL, which is something you don't see bandied about too often, but there are out there. There are also hundreds of thousands of other kind of open source licensing agreements that have been created by someone in their bedroom in a far-flung country who have created an awesome piece of open source software. There are some really funny open source license agreements out there. If you've got time, highly recommend that you go and have a look at them. Some include having to dance on one leg while you're using the software. Another one includes that if you see the developer in person, you have to buy them a coffee or a beer. If you've got time and you want to get your ITAM geek on and have some fun facts about open source licensing terms, honestly, have a Google, have a look. There's some really good, unique and funny ones out there. If you have a lot of open source software within your organization, this of course still needs to be managed. There are some open source software that can end up costing money in the future if it's being used or manipulated in a certain way. Some of the bigger software publishers that do provide open source licenses do have gotchas, or things to catch you out where you start using the software in a particular way and it's moved away from that GNU license that they provided it with and has turned into a commercial piece of software that you then have to pay them for and owe them money for. So it's really important that you don't just disregard open source as being fine, easy, go do whatever you want to do. Make sure that if someone's requesting some open source software that you're doing your due diligence, you're checking the license agreement that it's with, you're checking whether there's anything that could turn it into a paid for application where you need to buy a particular license or give them money, very much like you would do with any other kind of software onboarding. The risk is obviously going to be lower, as you know, maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10 it's going to be completely open source with absolutely no future scares on needing to pay for it or requiring a different license type. But do your due diligence, make sure you onboard that software correctly. And remember as well, open source software is going to be updated, patched, etc. via the open source community or the developers that created it. Your InfoSec IT security teams may want to see the frequency of how often that's being patched so that it doesn't become an InfoSec cybersecurity risk within your organization. So it's not just as easy as going open source, fine, install it everywhere, approved, added to the approved software catalog, etc. You need to make sure that you know what you're approving, not only from that licensing standpoint, whether it is going to be a gotcha in the future, but also from an InfoSec and just a general ITAM perspective. You know, do you really need to add another open source application to your portfolio? Do you already have something that's gone through the onboarding process, that is approved, that is packaged, etc., that will do the job as well? It's about keeping that sprawling down whilst also trying not to be too much of a software police. Open source licenses still need management too. Don't forget that. Hope you found this useful. If I've missed anything about open source licensing, feel free to let me know. And like I said, please do have a research on some of the funny open source license terms that are out there. They're really good. If you've got a spare bit of time, you want to get your ITAM geek on, have a look. We hope to see you next time here at the Sam Beast YouTube channel. Until then, happy ITAMing.